The moment Ethan Cole heard the cashier say the words declined, something inside him tightened, not because the total was high, but because he recognized the sound of quiet panic that followed. It was the sound of dignity slipping, of a person standing under bright cafe lights while the world pretended not to notice. Ethan had lived inside that sound for years. What he did next would seem small, almost forgettable, yet it would ripple into a truth far bigger than either of them could imagine. If you believe that kindness deserves second chances, take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel Kindness Journal, because stories like this remind us how much one small act can change everything. It was late morning, sunlight spilling through the wide glass windows of a downtown coffee shop, painting the floor in soft rectangles of gold-white light. Outside, the city moved with its usual urgency, but inside, time slowed just enough for lives to intersect. Ethan sat near the window, his old backpack resting against the chair, his coffee already half cold. He had come here not for comfort but for Wi-Fi, hoping to finish a job application before his phone battery died. His life ran on small calculations now, minutes, coins, chances. As a single father, every decision carried weight, and every dollar had a purpose tied to his 8-year-old son, Noah. Ethan's clothes were clean but worn, faded jeans and a light gray jacket that had seen too many seasons. His hands were rough from warehouse shifts and late-night gig work, hands that had learned how to fix broken toys and stretch groceries through the week. He had not planned to notice the woman at the counter, but something about the stillness in her posture caught his attention. She stood tall, composed, yet there was a subtle tension in her shoulders, a pause too long between attempts to tap her card. The woman's name was Claire Rowland, though no one in the cafe knew it then. She wore a simple navy dress and low heels, her dark hair pulled back neatly, her face calm in a way that suggested practice. She did not look like someone unprepared for life. Yet when the card declined again, a faint flush rose to her cheeks. She apologized quietly to the cashier, reached for another card, and hesitated. In that hesitation was a crack in the image she carried so well. Ethan did not think. Thinking often talked him out of things. He stood, walked forward, and placed a few bills on the counter, covering the cost of her coffee and pastry. He nodded once, a brief gesture meant to say this was nothing, that no debt was being created here. He returned to his seat before she could fully process what had happened. To him, it was not heroism. It was instinct. He had once been the man whose card declined at a pharmacy while buying fever medicine for his child. He remembered the heat of that moment too clearly. Claire turned, surprised, her eyes searching for the stranger who had stepped in. She saw Ethan already sitting down, eyes lowered, pretending to reread an email. She thanked him, softly, sincerely, then took her order and moved aside. There was no dramatic exchange, no lingering conversation. Just two lives brushing past each other under fluorescent lights and sunshine. Ethan finished his application, closed his laptop, and left shortly after. He picked up Noah from school that afternoon, listening as his son talked excitedly about a science project involving paper bridges. That evening, they shared a simple dinner, laughing when Noah declared himself a future engineer. Ethan went to bed tired but oddly lighter, unaware that the woman from the cafe had spent the rest of her day unable to forget his face. Claire's life, despite its polish, was unraveling quietly. As the CEO of a rapidly expanding tech company, she was known for precision, control, and relentless forward motion. That morning, her card had declined not because she lacked money, but because her accounts had been temporarily frozen amid a sudden internal audit and legal challenge that threatened everything she had built. Investors were circling. Trust was thinning. She was exhausted from fighting battles that no press release could fix. Standing in that cafe, she had felt stripped of her armor, reduced to a moment of helplessness she was unaccustomed to facing. Ethan's gesture unsettled her more than any boardroom confrontation. It was not the money. It was the lack of expectation. He did not ask her name, did not linger for gratitude, did not try to leverage the moment into importance. He simply helped and walked away. In a world where every action seemed transactional, that simplicity struck deep. Days passed. Ethan received rejection emails, one after another. The warehouse cut shifts. Bills stacked. Noah caught a cold, and Ethan stayed up nights checking his breathing, counting hours until morning. He wondered sometimes if kindness was a luxury he could no longer afford. Still, he found himself holding doors, offering smiles, fixing small things for neighbors. It was who he was before life got hard, and who he refused to stop being. One afternoon, Ethan received an unexpected call. A local logistics startup wanted to interview him for a full-time operations role. The pay was better than anything he had earned in years. The benefits included health insurance. Ethan sat on the edge of his bed, stunned, rereading the email confirmation with shaking hands. He did not know that Claire Rowland had personally flagged his name. After the Café incident, Claire had asked the cashier about him, learned his name from a receipt, and quietly looked him up. She discovered his work history, his steady reliability, the gaps that told a story of responsibility rather than failure. At a time when her company was re-evaluating its values and leadership culture, Ethan represented something she realized she had been overlooking: character forged under pressure. The interview was daytime, sunlight again streaming through glass walls, this time in a modern office overlooking the city. Ethan wore his best shirt, hands clasped tightly in his lap. When Claire entered the room, recognition passed between them like a held breath. She did not mention the coffee shop immediately. She spoke of operations, teamwork, resilience. Ethan answered honestly, admitting where he had struggled and where he had grown. There was no performance, only truth. When the offer came, it felt unreal. Ethan accepted, voice steady but heart racing. Weeks later, his life began to shift. Regular hours meant evenings with Noah. Insurance meant peace of mind. Purpose returned, slowly, carefully, like something healing. Claire's challenges did not vanish overnight, but something changed in her leadership. She began walking the floors, listening more, cutting excess where it mattered least and investing where it mattered most. The audit resolved. The company stabilized. Yet the moment she carried with her was still that café, that small kindness that reminded her who she wanted to be. Months later, at a company event held in broad daylight under a clear sky, Claire stood on stage and spoke about values, about unseen acts that shape cultures. She did not single Ethan out publicly, but when their eyes met across the crowd, there was understanding. Gratitude flowed silently, mutual and complete. Ethan went home that evening and found Noah asleep on the couch, science project spread across the table. He smiled, covered his son with a blanket, and sat beside him, feeling the weight of the journey behind them and the promise ahead. He thought about how close he had come to becoming someone hardened, someone who looked away. He was glad he had not. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that kindness can return in ways we never expect, please take a moment now to like, comment, and share this video. Your engagement helps stories like this reach the people who need them most. And before we reach the end, we have one special request: comment the word kindness below if you believe that even the smallest act can change a life. Because sometimes, the world does not change with grand gestures or loud declarations. Sometimes it shifts quietly, in a coffee shop, under daylight, when one tired parent decides to help a stranger without knowing why. And sometimes, that stranger carries the power to change everything, yet chooses to be changed first.